Now, today's service, I would like you to receive as prophetic the words that will be spoken. By prophetic, I mean that they have the power to change your life, to alter the direction of your life. The concept of the prophetic is either revelatory or imposing. And I use the word imposing in the sense of determining what happens. A prophet is not just one who sees secrets. A prophet speaks things into existence. So when Elijah said, "By my word there shall be no rain," it was not a prediction. He spoke it into existence. That's the prophetic. So what we are going to be considering today, I'd like you to receive it in that kind of atmosphere. Tell your neighbor, don't sleep on it. We'll be considering what is titled God's Recovery Plan. But I want to read a long reading in 1 Samuel chapter 30. 1 Samuel chapter 30 and verse 1. So about maybe in verse 23 thereabouts. And it came to pass when David and his men will come to Ziklag on the third day, the Amalekites had invaded the south, and Ziklag and smitten Ziklag and burned it with fire. And had taken the women captives, and they were daring, they slew not any. In other words, they didn't kill anybody, either great or small, but carried them away and went on their way. So David and his men came to the city, and behold, it was burned with fire. And their wives and their sons and their daughters were taken captives. Then David and people that were with him lifted up their voice and wept until they had no power to weep. How many of you have experienced anything like that? Where you cried until there were no tears in your eyes again, there was no saliva in your mouth again. With 5, and David's 2 wives were taken captives. Ahinoam, the Jezreelite, or Jezreelitess, and Abigail, the wife of Nabal, the Carmelite. And David was greatly distressed, for the people spake of stoning him, because the soul of all the people was grieved, every man for his sons and for his daughters. But David encouraged himself in the Lord his God. Tell your neighbor, encourage yourself, because God has a plan. Say louder, encourage yourself, because God has a plan. Verse 7, David said to Abiathar, the priest, Ahimelech's son, I pray thee bring me hither the ephod. And Abiathar brought thither the ephod to David. And David inquired at the Lord, saying, shall I pursue after this troop? Shall I overtake them? And he answered him, pursue, for thou shalt surely overtake them without fear, recover all. So David went, he and his 600 men that were with him came to the brook Besor, where those that were left behind stayed. But David pursued, he and 400 men, for 200 abode behind, which were so faint they could not go over the brook Besor. And they found an Egyptian in the field and brought him to David and gave him bread, and he did eat, and they made him drink water. And they gave him a piece of cake of figs and 2 clusters of raisins. And when he had eaten, his spirit came again to him, for he had eaten no bread nor drunk any water 3 days and 3 nights. And David said unto him, to whom belongest thou? And whence art thou? And he said, I am a young man of Egypt, servant to an Amalekite, and my master left me because 3 days agone I fell sick. We made an invasion upon the south of the Cherethites, and upon the coast which belonged to Judah, and upon the south of Caleb, and we burned Ziklag with fire. And David said to him, canst thou bring me down to this company? And he said, swear unto me by God that thou wilt neither kill me or deliver me into the hands of my master. and I will bring thee down to this company. And when he had brought him down, behold, they were spread abroad upon all the earth, eating and drinking and dancing, and because of the great spoil that had taken out of the land of the Philistines and out of the land of Judah. And David smote them from twilight even unto the evening of the next day, and there escaped not a man of them which rode upon camels and fled. All right, let's say 400 young men which rode upon camels and fled, except 400 young men. And David recovered all that the Amalekites had carried away. Tell your neighbor, you will recover all. Say it louder, you will recover all. Some of you, your prophetic word is already coming. Don't sleep on it. Don't sleep on it. David recovered all that the Amalekites had carried away, and David rescued his 2 wives, and there was nothing lacking to them, neither small nor great, neither son nor daughters, neither spoil, nor anything that had been taken to them. David recovered all. And David took all the flock and the herds which they drave before those other cattle, and said, this is David's spoil. David came to the 200 men, which were so faint that they could not follow David, whom they had made also to abide at the brook Besor. And they went forth to meet David and to meet the people that were with him. And when David came near to the people, he saluted them. Then answered all the wicked men and men of Belial of those that went with David, and said, because they went not with us, we will not give them aught of the spoil that we have recovered, except to every man his wife and his children, that they may lead them away and depart. Then David said, you shall not do so, my brethren, with that which the Lord has given us, who has preserved us and delivered the company that came against us into our hand. Are we teaching ministry in this direction? It's titled God's Recovery Plan. Shall we pray? And so, Father, we thank you because we know that you are able to help us to pursue, to overtake, and to recover all. As your words come forth, we receive it with all our heart, with all our lives. We will never be the same again. In Jesus' name we pray. Now, one of the regular realities that mankind has to adjust to, especially after the fall in the Garden of Eden, is the reality of losses. When God made man and put him in Eden, there was no intention that there will be any loss. In other words, all that God gave man was given not with any intention that man will lose it. When God created man, he created him with a capacity to retain. But he also created him with a capacity to choose. Unfortunately, mankind choose to disregard the commandments of God, disregard the laws of God. And so losses now became a permanent reality for all of humanity. For Adam, the first thing he lost, of course, was the garden. But you can also say he lost dominion. God gave him dominion, blessed him, told him to replenish the earth, and gave him the authority and power to rule over the universe. But Adam disobeyed God, and by his disobedience, he lost dominion. However, you may not understand the pain of Adam until we begin to read further. So that in Genesis chapter 4, Adam lost his son. In fact, he seemed to have lost both of his sons. Because when Abel died, because Cain killed him, Cain was also banished from the residential area of humans. He was banished to a place where people do not really stay. So it seemed to Adam and Eve that they lost both their children. So lose the presence of God in Eden was enough pain. But then going forward, they lost both their children again. It was a terrible, bitter experience. You know, I was talking about it this morning, and it occurred to me that Abel was the first person to die physically. Not Adam. Adam was told he was going to die, but he was not the first to die. I mean, for Adam, he must have been wondering what the death would look like, safe. And then he saw Abel die. He must have been a very terrible psychological blow to his heart to see his son die, just like that. To see his other son banished from the face of the earth, as it were. But ever since that time, the reality of losses came to stay for humanity. And everybody, emphatically, I can say this, has lost something. Maybe you have not lost a child like Adam lost Abel. Maybe you have not lost a garden like Eve lost the garden. But everybody has lost something. Everybody here listening to me right now, whether you're listening to me physically or you're listening to me online, there's something that you might have lost. There's something you have lost. That's why we are talking about this subject, God's recovery plan. Some people have lost relationships. There are some people you have lost favor with. You are no longer in touch with them. Although you are in touch, you're no longer in touch the way you're supposed to be, the way you are supposed to be, the way you ought to be. I know what it is to be close to people, and then after 10, 15 years, we are total strangers. The relationship was lost. Maybe it was my fault. Maybe it was their fault. But even divine ordained relationships can be lost. Paul was supposed to walk with Barnabas according to the ordination of God. A voice came from heaven, or according as it was documented in Acts chapter 13, the Holy Ghost said, separate me, Paul and Barnabas, for the work that I have called them. But eventually, subsequently, Barnabas said he was not going to work with Paul anymore. They had to go their separate ways. It was a divinely ordained relationship, but they lost it. There are marriages that have been lost, not because it was not the will of God, but because somebody there was careless, somebody there did not value the relationship. The point I'm making is this: some of you have lost relationships. Some of your besties and best friends that you had by January, this is July, and you do not even speak to one another anymore. That is something you have lost. As a pastor, I know what it is to lose members. You try your best to be the best pastor in your own capacity, but sometimes, many times, it is never good enough. Jesus was the best pastor. He preached a sermon in John chapter 6, and several of his followers left him. He lost them. And they were left with only 12. He turned to the 12 and said, you self, would you remain or will you also go away? In other words, no matter how you try hard to be a pastor, sometimes it's just inevitable. Losses will happen. It's something we have come to live with, we have come to adjust to as human beings. In heaven, there will be no loss. But on this earth, it's something we have to get used to. You can lose relationship, and some people can lose your own relationship. Some people have lost time. ASU is on strike. We have done 5 months anniversary on the ASU strike. And if you are attending or schooling in a federal university, that's a lot of time. Some of you have planned already. You had imagined the NYC kit. You to obey the clarion call. You have imagined all the dengue posts. You will dengue post and you will prepare your village people. But ASU said, hey, hold on a bit. I still have some plans for you. People have lost time. I mean, schooling in Nigeria, you lose time. Some people have to write WAEC 4 times, 5 times, write JAM 6 times, just to get into the university. And then after university, the ASU continues. Some people have lost time. Some people have lost relationships. Some people have lost time. Some people have lost opportunities. The opportunities that come. And then sometimes they say opportunities come but once. You had an opportunity to toast a fine babe, but you told yourself, I will wait. By the time you waited, after 3 weeks, she was taken. Say, I lost the opportunity. Shoot your shot now before they take her again. Stop dragging your feet. Stop doing as if you are in heaven. The possibility of losing time is a reality. Not do yourself. Some people have lost opportunities and they may never get it back. You now start praying, oh God, scatter that relationship. Nothing like that. God no go answer them. No, now you know shoot your shot. The other guy was a very sharp, smart shooter. He took over. Listen to me. Some people have lost opportunities. Some people have lost money. 10K for 50K. You have lost, you see? MMM, and cryptocurrency, and Forex, various kinds of investments. Many people have lost money. I know what it is to lose money. I know what it is to understand the pain of losing money. Hard-hand money. Not yahoo money. Hard-hand money. Dangerous seed from my labor in the gospel. Hard and lost. Just like that. Every one of us have lost something. Some of us have lost confidence. We used to be very, confident in ourselves, confident in our abilities, confident in our futures. But something happened. A mistake was made and it stole away our confidence. And right now, there is no spring in your step anymore. You don't walk with that confidence, with that swagger, with that boldness. Everybody has lost something. The person beside you may look all packaged and look like they are perfect and they have never lost anything in their life. But everybody has lost something. Some people have lost focus. All of a sudden, they are so distracted. They used to be focused on Jesus, focused on their studies, but they met a boyfriend. And everything began to, scatter. Focus is a gift, it's a treasure for someone to be focused in purpose, focused in ministry, focused in the works of his hands. It's a gift, it's a treasure, but some people have lost it. Some people have lost spiritual fervency and vitality. January, you wrote 10 things that you were going to be doing every week. You will pray, you read the Bible, you give tithe, you come to church, all of that. Now it's July, and some of us have lost some temperature. You have lost some heat. You have lost some fervency. That's why we are talking about God's recovery plan. It's something that concerns every one of us. You might have not lost people. I lost my dad. I no longer have a father, physical father. But that may not be your own case. What have you lost? Perhaps you have lost time. Perhaps you have lost confidence. Perhaps you have lost vitality and fervency. Everybody has lost something. And that's why we are talking about God's recovery plan. Now, by the time you begin to understand the dealings of God towards mankind, in every season and in every dispensation, you will discover that God is not indifferent towards the losses of man. God is not neutral. God does not play blind to the losses of mankind. Every time man loses something, you see God go to work immediately to try to restore, to try to recover, to try to ensure that the losses do not have a terrible impact and terrible effect on the person who lost something. Adam lost the garden. He lost dominion. Immediately Adam lost it, God's recovery plan went to work. How do I restore dominion to mankind? How do I restore authority to mankind? Jesus, the Lamb of God that was slain from the very foundation of the world. Now, the plan came to pass because God knew that there was a possibility on the earth realm for losses to happen. He already had a plan, a recovery plan. They lost their glory. They were naked. God picked an animal, killed it, clothed them, covered their shame. Every time man loses something, you see that God is not indifferent. God does not begin to say, well, that's your business, you have lost it, you can go to hell. No, God begins to think about, how do I help them recover? One of the ministries of Jesus, according to Luke chapter 4 and verse 18, is the ministry of recovery. The Spirit of God is upon me to preach glad tidings to the poor, Jesus said in Luke 4:18. But when you see the verse further, it says, and to preach the recovery of sight to them that are blind. Jesus came to recover. He came to recover what was lost. He came to recover what was stolen. He came to recover what man lost. So God is not indifferent towards our losses. If you lost a father, God is not indifferent. He wants to help you recover. If you lost some money, God is not indifferent. He wants to help you recover. If you lost time, God is not indifferent. He wants to help you recover. I like that phrase in Luke 4:18. It shows that there is a measure of the anointing that is channeled for recovery. The Spirit of God is upon me, for He has anointed me. I read that verse again and again, and it was so different to me. He has anointed me to preach recovery of sight to them that are blind. Many people have lost certain things. Samson lost his eyes, lost his strength, lost his hair, lost his consecration. God didn't say, well, go to hell, I want you. No! Immediately the hair began to grow back. That's recovery. Lost his hair. And you will have thought that was the end of Samson's story. Nope. God had a plan, a recovery plan. The Philistines had no idea that recovery was possible. They had no idea that this Samson that we have cut and removed his eyes, he will still be able to do something very powerful and terrible in righteousness. They had no clue. But God had a plan. Tell your neighbor, God has a plan for your recovery. So the story we read in 1 Samuel chapter 30 is one of the most famous, notable recovery stories. But I'd like you to see a few things in that story in 1 Samuel chapter 30 concerning David and his recovery story. I'd like you to see how not to respond to life's losses. When something is lost, there's a way to respond, and there's a way not to respond. If you lose a family member, there's a way to respond. If you lose some money, there's a way to respond. If you have lost time, there's a way to respond. You must know how to respond. God does not want your losses to have the most impact in your life. Losses are seemingly inevitable, but God does not want those losses to have the most impact in your life. No. Even though you have lost certain things, your life can still turn out beautifully, wonderfully. Your life can still turn out whole and full and rich. That's the plan of God. Yes, Adam lost the garden, but God had a recovery plan. But there's a way to respond. If you don't respond in the right way, you will not experience the recovery plan of God. It's not like the enemy who stole those goods have gone to a place that is unreachable. The problem many times is that we don't react the way we are supposed to react. It's not like the money that you have lost is forever gone and there's nothing that can be done about it. Many times is that you do not react the way you are supposed to react. Your reaction is very important if you're going to experience God's recovery plan. How not to respond to losses. Number one, we see that in David's story. Don't blame others or yourself. Many times when people experience losses, they want to begin to throw blames. God asked Adam, who told you you were naked? Have you eaten of the tree which I told you not to eat? Adam began to throw blames. It is the wife you gave me. It is the woman you gave me. When you experience a loss, that's not the time to start blaming others, to start even blaming yourself, to wallow in self-pity and begin to cry and say, they told me that I was an Olorunmaiye child. Hey, see again, I've done it. That's not the time to do that. You must respond accordingly. But how not to respond? Don't blame others. Don't blame yourself. Second thing here, don't seek pity. Who will pity me now that I've lost money? Pity is cheap. Anybody can give you pity, but very few people can give you help. Anybody can say, hey, Omashi. After that, the money will come back. Say, Nakpale go bring money back. When I lost my dad, everybody sent their condolences. My condolences. My condolences. But condolence, no, they raise the dead. Condolence don't go pay school fees. Condolence don't go play fatherly role over my life. If you are seeking pity, you may not make much progress in terms of recovery. David perhaps looked at his mighty men, and the Bible says they spoke of stoning him. The boys he trained, he picked them from the gutter, from the rubbish heap of life. He trained them, they became mighty men. Yet in this day that David lost certain things because of their own losses too, they felt like stoning him. The person you are expecting pity from, he also lost something. So everybody didn't touch. Buhari economy affect everybody. Everybody was touched. If you are thinking about going about looking for pity, it's not the way. You don't respond to losses by seeking pity. Some people will pity you, yes. Some people will sympathize with you, and you should not reject it, but to not be looking for it. Some people, when bad things happen to them, the first place they go is their WhatsApp status, crying emoji. You can't continue like that. That should not be your first response, your first reaction. No. The many things that have happened to me, many things that I've lost, nobody knew. Only the people that are concerned. My wife, this is what has happened though. We have lost this. If it's not their business, well, what will you tell me? Pastor, sorry. After that, you go. I'm not going to use my own wallet to disturb you. How not to respond to losses? Don't lose hope. You may lose everything, but don't lose hope. These guys, the servants of David, they lost hope, such that they spoke of stoning their king. They lost hope. Eventually, it was 600 of them that were supposed to go and recover, according to the prophetic direction that God gave David. But 200 were so weak, so demoralized, they could not lift a finger. They could not lift a leg. They could not even attempt to recover. Many times, when Satan orchestrates a loss, it is towards the ultimate loss of hope. Listen to me. No matter what is lost in life, as long as there is hope, there is a recovery path. Medical doctors, surgeons will tell you, once somebody loses hope to live, he loses the willpower to live. You can try to treat him with the best of effort. He will not respond. Because, let me go to my maker, he says. He has lost hope. He has lost hope. Hope keeps alive. In Job chapter 14, Job chapter 14 and verse 7 to 9, he says if you cut a tree, you would think that that's the end of the story. But there is still hope for it. At the smell of water, it can sprout again. Just smells water. A tree, you cut it down. Every time you weed your environment, you think that's the end. For where? Stubborn grass. At the smell of water, one rain like this, one drop of rain, even if it's dirty water. In fact, dirty water is the best. Stand up again. It begins to grow again. That's how your life should be. You are a tree of righteousness. You cannot be crushed. You cannot be quenched. Let Satan do his worst. Keep your hope alive. Keep your hope alive. When losses happen, protect your hope. Protect it with all you have. One last point here. How not to respond to losses. Don't think God is against you. When losses happen, one of the greatest temptations is to ask, where was God? What is God looking at? Why did God allow it to happen? Without the angels that are allocated to me, how come I lost money? 50K for 100K. The Holy Ghost no tell me anything. He no give me sign. He gave you, now your greed no allow you see him. Agree with taking 100K, 50K, 100K. He gave you signs. That's why when you are anxious, you are pressured, your discernment reduces. Your discernment will reduce. There will always be signs. But never think that God is against you. If you lose anything in life. And I lost my father. It was a very terrible blow for me. I was just a young man building my life. For me, the biggest blow was that my father would not get the chance to see what my life turned out to be eventually, because he was a very huge fan of mine. Very huge fan of mine. And it was a terrible blow. A terrible blow. But it never occurred to me that, it never crossed my mind that it was God's fault, that God was to be blamed. Never. I don't know where Christians get the guts and the effrontery to say some things. God, where have you been? Oluwa. Now God, they follow talk like that. I think many of us do not really understand reverence for God. That's why we have the audacity to accuse God of certain things. Accuse God. God? You don't accuse God. God can never be blamed. God is never at fault. God is always just, always righteous, always perfect. You may not understand all the details, but never blame God. Never. It can't be God's fault. There are 3 ways God tries to make up for losses. The first way is that he gives you back exactly what you lost. You lost money, he gets it back for you. Exactly what you lost is returned, is recovered. But there are some things you lost that cannot be returned, actually. I lost my dad, no other person can be dad to me. In the way he was, a biological father. I can never have another biological father. But God can also help you to recover by compensating you for your loss. So that even though you don't get the exact thing, you get something that makes up for what was lost. Are we still together? Another way is that God can ensure that what is lost is of no consequence. Some people will live your life and think that you are finished. If I leave that church will die. God will see to it that there is no consequence. Nobody will even miss them. Nobody will even know that somebody left. That's how God responds to our losses. But one of the things Satan will try to do is to give you the impression that God is your enemy. It's God's fault. And Satan does that because he knows that God always has a recovery plan. But if you begin to think of God as somebody who is against you, you will not experience the recovery plan of God. You're supposed to get closer to God if you experience a loss. God is supposed to be a best friend in that hour. But many people run away from God, begin to accuse God, begin to call God names. Why? Satan gives them the impression it is God's fault. What was God looking at? That was what Satan wanted to achieve with Job's trials. In one day, he lost his entire children, family, business. Satan's real plan was to make Job question God's integrity. That's what he was really targeting. Because Satan knew that everything lost can still be restored. With this God we are serving, he could shock you. This God, everything lost. And by the time you read the end of Job, he will shock you. This same man that lost everything, the Bible says he had twice what he had. Twice. Oh yeah. He didn't get it in the exact ways. The children that died, he didn't get them back directly. But of course, there was a recovery on every side. But Satan will make it look as though God is your enemy. Run away from God. God is trying to punish you. He's going to try to teach you a lesson. Don't have that kind of impression about God. If losses happen, please don't ever think that God is against you. If you withdraw from God, then the losses begin to have a greater impact. The ripple effect of a loss. You see, many people lose siblings, and then after that they enter depression. After that they become suicidal. After that they die. Oh yeah. When Satan orchestrates a loss, that is just a means to an end. He's targeting something greater. So how you respond to it will determine whether that loss would not be as impactful as Satan planned it, or the ripple effect will continue to a point where much will now be lost than the initial loss itself. When Adam and Eve lost the garden, Satan still had a grand plan. He wanted to colonize the entire earth. So all the terrible things happening as recorded in Genesis chapter 6, where they were now renowned men, as the Bible describes them, giants, a breed of mankind that was not pure. Satan's plan was to ensure that there is no space in the earth for recovery. Even if Jesus was going to come back, he not go see where to land. There will be no Mary to give birth to Jesus. There will be no pure breed anymore. If you experience a loss, understand that there's a bigger picture. It's not a time to now begin to lament and begin to cry and begin to curse God and begin to say, I will never serve God again. That church is scam. That pastor is a fake. If you do that, you will discover you have lost more eventually than even the thing that was lost. Let me move ahead here. How we respond to losses will determine whether we will experience God's recovery plan. Now, how do we respond to losses? Good. This is going to be very straightforward, and then we can have some time to pray. Number one, in responding to losses, get God's opinion. That's the first thing you do. Get God's opinion. I've lost some money. Oh God, what sayest thou? What do you think about this? In getting God's opinion, you involve God immediately. In involving God immediately, you ensure that there is no much ripple effect of the initial loss. What is lost can now be contained immediately, and there can be a reversal plan to ensure that what was lost does not have a mighty impact. Get God's opinion immediately. If you ask the opinion of others, they may say, you're a stupid person. I say, I've told you. You are too greedy. I was looking for money. Look at now, you have lost money. They may insult you, ridicule you, mock you. You will now enter depression and think of killing yourself because you lost 50K. When you now get to heaven, they will say, Why did you come? He said, 50K. 50K. Now carry you come in. He said, I lose 50K. Now I make account verse. I don't keep myself. You lost a boyfriend. Only Tunde can marry me. Only Tunde can marry me. Nobody can marry me. I can love me like Tunde. Sister, calm down. What are you talking about? Is Tunde Jesus? What are you talking about? Now there's category. You have lost Tunde. Must you lose your mother, lose your friends, lose your roommates, lose your pastor, lose your church members because you lost Tunde? Is Tunde eternal life? It's a problem. Seek the opinion of God. Sister Ruth may say, you're the one. When I wanted to kiss you, you refuse to kiss him. Now, look at now. Come on, kiss. Look at now. You're not romantic. That's what Sister Ruth says. But if you ask God, God will say, do you know that's good riddance? Do you know that you did not lose anything yourself? That I was protecting your destiny? Seek God's opinion. Don't be quick to conclude. Many things that look like losses is a setup for surplus. A prophet went to a widow and said, I'm hungry, give me food. The woman said, bro, if you are really a prophet, you will know that only one card I get, one last card. If you are even seeing anything, the man said, I know, bring that last card. It looked like a terrible investment. In fact, the woman planned to eat and die. That was her plan. He said, I will eat it, me and my child, and I will die. It's our memorial meal. The prophet said, Shamwa, bring it. And then the prophet now gave us subsequent further instructions that sustained her through the drought. Seek God's opinion. Many times what is lost, if you see it from human perspective, you will be too depressed, too demoralized. The first thing David did, he called the priest. He said, what is God saying about this matter? When he spoke to God, consulted God, he said, God, should I pursue? Will I recover? Will I overtake? Many things that look eternally lost is still available. Are you listening to me? Yes, sir. By the way, if you attempted to shoot your shot late and that sister was lost, you can go and ask God's opinion. God, what says that? God, I say, don't worry, she just play. 6 months she will come back. Wait. God can see that. Yeah, she's just trying to scare you. Don't worry. That one that she's doing with that person, don't worry. Just wait for it. Are you listening to me? Yes, sir. That's a word of knowledge for somebody. Yes, you calm down. Don't worry. And I prayed. I know that she was the one God told me. If you are just calm down. Just wait. But after wedding, once you see wedding, just know that God. When I say, nobody say after wedding, go see they say God say I should wait. That. And actually, God can actually connect to somebody, but the person is stubborn. No, the person no agree. It's possible. It doesn't mean you did not receive correctly. It's possible. But everybody will give their own account to God. Your own is that you say, at least I obeyed. Are you listening to me? Yes, seek God's opinion. I'm losing time. God, ASU is on strike. What sayest thou? And in 1 month, you can learn something that will compensate for all the time lost to ASU. Seek God's opinion. Seek God's opinion. If you've lost confidence, seek God's opinion. God can say something to you that revamps your faith, that jerks you back to life in terms of confidence. For every time you lose something, go to God. Make it your default reaction. David inquired of the Lord. That was David's attitude. Any battle he was going to do, he would ask God, how should I go? What is the strategy? What's the plan? And so when this happened, it was just normal for David. David was not faking it. It was a normal routine for David to begin to seek God's opinion. He inquired of God. A feedback from God is a setup for recovery. Anytime you lose something and you are miserable, like the servant of David, in that state of misery, you will not have the energy to pursue, to attempt to recover. You must hear from God to go forward. These guys were so disheartened, they thought of stoning David. And it was because they had not received strength from the voice of God. The Bible says David encouraged himself in the Lord. In other words, because of the confidence of receiving feedback from God, David felt like, well, there's hope. Well, I think there's faith. I'm confident that this is not the end of the story. But if you lose something, you lose someone, and all you hear are pity parties, all you hear are consolation speeches and condolence speeches, it's not going to be enough to progress with life. I know what it is to lose things, and only the voice of God can get me back on my feet. I know what it is to be very low on confidence because somebody said something terrible to me, or made a mess, or made light of my ministry, and I've lost confidence. I'm like, should I really be in this preaching business? Should I really? Be like, say, this call, maybe now God flash me. I'm not sure, say the thing. There are some people that when you talk to them, you doubt your call, honestly. David was going to go and kill Goliath. His own brother said, you this stubborn small boy, you like to come to what's not your business. Go back to the sheep. What are you looking for here? Those were his brothers. They were the ones supposed to believe in him the most, but they were going to kill his ministry. Are you listening to me? God gives you a vision, God gives you a work, God gives you an assignment. It's not everybody you hear. You will collect some feedback that will break your backbone. Say, how did I do? How was the singing? What the person will tell you, you will never hold microphone in your life. Did you sing? I didn't know. I thought you were praying. No, I didn't know it was singing. No. In your life, you say you can't join intercessory department. So blessing our prayer, my cotton in there. Another person can give you a feedback that you can do better. I know you are not there yet. The same thing, no? Are you listening to me? Make sure you get the right feedback from God when you lose anything. If not, you can bury everything on the platform of somebody said something. I have a code of conduct towards my mentees and people who look up to me, and I tell them, I say, if you make mistakes, it depends on the kind of mistake. I may not say anything. If you do something that is not too perfect, I may not say anything. I will just overlook it. They said, why? I said, because I don't want to crush your confidence. When I was writing on Facebook, because nobody gave me a microphone, the only microphone I had was Facebook microphone. There were a couple of people who felt that, guy, I don't like the way you write. Don't you have any quotable quotes to motivate people? This is your violent writing. Go down now. People are looking for hope. Don't stop writing like this. Everything violent. Guy, encourage people too. Now people are going through a lot too. So I said, okay. Be like say this ministry of writing. Maybe not be my tune. I no go write again. I go just intercede for people. Then after 1 month, somebody will say, I've not read your post, your edifying post. I say, what you call an edifying post? Say, I missed your post. You missed my post? I was like, I'll go back to writing. Continue. After 6 months, another person comes and says, this is the way you write, you don't go pay, say. No, they disturb us with your... But I now discovered that, wait, I just have a unique audience. And some people, no matter what you do, they will never like it. You know the man called Joel Osteen? His father was a very different preacher from him. John Osteen was a very conservative, anointed man of God. I mean, Kenneth Hagin said John Osteen was the only one he knew that operated in the 9 gifts of the Spirit. And John Osteen never had a big church, small church. But he died. And then his son, he had 2 or 3 sons. And the committee of elders says, now the one with the media, and I ain't go continue the work. The one with the media. He never preached before, he never get any preachers before. He said, I ain't go continue the work. And they picked Joel Osteen. Today, Joel Osteen pastors perhaps the biggest church in the entire United States of America. He doesn't teach like his father. Say this after me, God loves you. This is my Bible. But people are getting blessed. Everybody have their unique audience. Everybody have their unique audience. When I discover this, I don't waste my time trying to impress everybody. You complain about my ministry, I tell you, you can excuse also. You don't like the way I'm talking. You see, there's another church. There's church here. There's church here. That place to there's church. No, not distress yourself. Option 4. There's plenty of option. Are you listening to me? Yes, get the right feedback. When I discovered this, I didn't allow losses disturb me anymore. Pastor, I'm not coming to your church. I'll tell you, my brother, congratulations. We'll see you at the top. Go see you. Pastor, the reason why I'm not coming to your church is because I don't like the atmosphere in your church. You people don't sing Yoruba song, Alujo, that we can be dancing to. Sister, God bless you. There's a CSC church just somewhere there. You can be blessed there. No fight, no problem. You're not my audience. I have my own audience. Are we still together? Number 2. How to respond to losses. To receive God's recovery plan. Walk in love and generosity. The only path to love, the only path to recovery rather, is the path of love. One of the things that Satan tries to achieve by orchestrating losses and thefts and robberies is to spring up bitterness of heart, hatred for others. I will never help anybody again. I will never help anybody again. What happened? See the people that I help. Look at how they mess me up. Satan wants that. He wants that. He wants that. I will never trust anybody again. All men are scum. All men are goats. All men are pig. Satan wants that. Okay, look at what they told me. After 6 years. You say, okay, now you are relating with the pain of the lady. You are relating with the pain. 6 years. I courted for 7 years. I can know what I imagine. So after 6 years, my wife now say, my fiance now say, Brother Judah, I respect the call of God upon your life. You are a great man. But when you're not but, hey, your heart will just say 6 years. But Satan now wants to orchestrate bitterness, anger, hatred. Every time you see a fine guy, say not them pythons, snake. They are fine, but inside they are demons. The losses will continue like that. The ripple effect will never stop. Are you listening to me? The path of love is the path of recovery. David lost everything. His own men thought of stoning him. He encouraged himself in the Lord. And he told the 600 guys, let's go. On the way, 200 were too tired. Their misery had made them lose hope. They dropped by. The 400 went on. David met an Egyptian on the road. He was not hoping that the Egyptian will help him. It was just David's natural default lifestyle to help weak people. All through his life, David was notorious for love. You call him the man of war, but if you see David's story, he loved his enemies. At the point his son attempted to kill him, the son died. He was now crying. The soldier said, how can you be crying that your enemy died? What is wrong? What kind of a king are you, safe? David was notorious for love. He met this Egyptian. He said, Alpha. The guy was almost gone. 3 days, 3 nights he had not eaten. And they will pick him up, give him food, give him drink. And then after, there's an hunger that will not allow for words. What's your name? What's your name? You can't talk. So there could be no interview before the food. But after the food, those food that opens your eyes, there are some food that they open your ear. I noticed to fast and my ears are blocked. I can't hear anything. I can't hear. The fasting has clogged everywhere. That's the kind of hunger this man was going through. Nobody could ask him any question. If you ask him, that's all he can answer. If you ask him what's your name, where are you from, they cannot hear you. But after the man ate a good meal, he began to talk. When you give children some gifts, they just begin to talk. They tell you the secret of their father, their mother, their uncle, everything they have seen in secret. They begin to mention it to you. People that like me, I was also transact. An exchange of treasures. And so the man just jump and say, my Oga, not like me, he leave me here. Who be your Oga? Say, nah, because we go do one raid for that side. Which side? He said, not do that side, we go raid the place. But as I fall sick, my Oga abandoned me. Where your Oga dey? Wait, you dey ask for my Oga. Talk say you no go kill me. Say, I'm not going to kill you. Carry us to where your Oga dey. That was how David was able to get to the place where all his goodies were intact. Listen to me. If you walk in bitterness, you now see somebody, not them, kill him. How will you now recover? All these people, they're just pretending. All these pastors, that's how they are. God has sent a man as your recovery agent. But you were hurt by a former pastor. You were hurt by a former spiritual leader. And so you now begin to put everybody in the same bracket. This is why many wouldn't recover. They refuse to walk in love on the path of recovery. David went, picked up his goods. When he came back, the 200 men that did not go with them because they were too despaired in the soul, the 400 soldiers that went said, they're not going to collect shish from our hand. They're not for us, go fight. David said, no, not be so. That's not how we roll here. Everybody will still get a share of the spoils. Whether you went to battle or you didn't. You see the love work of David. He didn't give people according to what they deserved. That's how to recover. You lost money, you now say, in my life, I'll never give that an offering again. All the time, where was God when I was giving that an offering? Where was God? I was giving that an offering, giving that an offering. No more tithes, man. This tithe has come. We are no more under the law. Hey, bro, not be like that. You go recover the money. You seem to have lost everything. God can still make a demand on generosity and say, give me. Give me. Give me. Are you listening to me? Yes, sir. The first girl you dated broke your heart. The second one broke your leg. The third one broke your teeth. The fourth one, God will say, love her like Christ loved the church. God. The first one, where I do, what do you do? The second one, God will say, love her the way I love you. That's the only way forward. And if you do it, when you finally get it right, you remember the previous heartbreaks and you will laugh. It will not pain you again. The part of love, it will pain you. Are you listening to me? Stop transferring aggression on Brother Kunle for sins that Brother Tunde committed. The person you are angry with is not the person that broke your heart. Why are you transferring aggression to him? So that's how men have to be careful. Listen to me. What's your problem? Am I the one that broke your heart? If you want to love me, love me. And I say, no, all men are the same. I must be careful. Not be so. Are you listening to me? The part of recovery is the part of love, the part of generosity. You stay generous. You might have lost money, lost time. God will still say, give other people your time, give other people your money. Yes. I have lost disciples, I've lost mentees, I've lost people I've poured myself into, I've invested into. Will I stop preaching? Will I stop pouring into people? No, I continue. Somebody asked me last Tuesday, how do you cope? People come and they just leave you, you invest in them. I say, at first it was difficult, but then you get used to it, you develop a tough skin. Yes, you bounce off it. I won't now say I'm no more doing ministry. All the people I invested in, look at them. This church, for instance, is notorious. You pour people, when they say they have graduated, they are going. You are going just like that. When we're supposed to be reaping the reward of our labor, you are going. We lay hands on you, did deliverance, scattered all the demons of poverty. Now you've got a job, and another person collected in tithe and offering. Hey, but we move. There's nothing we can do. We continue preaching. All plants, Apollo waters. God gives the increase. Are you listening to me? Oh, you people never thought about it like that. I'm laboring here, sweating. Many of you are young people. But when you now make your billions, my number will not be on your phone. I won't stop preaching. I have to continue laboring, toiling, toiling. Don't say because the people you invested in did not give back to you or it did not turn out well, you now walk in hatred and bitterness of heart. The part of recovery is the part of love. One last point here before we pray. What should be your response to losses? You pursue by prayers. You pursue. Listen to me. When David lost all he had, he knew that he had a responsibility if he was going to recover. He had inquired of God. God had given him the permission, the green light to pursue. But God was not going to pursue on his behalf. He was going to get on that horse and run. He was going to chase down the enemy and get back what belonged to him. It was his job. He managed to summon 600 men. 200 dropped out of the race, but they kept pressing. God will not pray for you. There are things that God will not do for you. But if you are going to recover, you must understand the principle of pursuing in prayer. You've lost things in January, lost things in February, lost things in March. The response should not be to lament and seek pity. You can pursue in prayers. You can pursue in prayers. You can pursue in prayers. For David, it was a pursuit on horses. For we who lose things in this dispensation, we pursue by prayers. And there is a guarantee to overtake as long as you travel in the speed of the Spirit. To overtake and to recover all. Praying people experience losses, but praying people always experience recovery. If you see anybody whose life can be summed up or summarized just by losses, it's because their response to the loss was not too effective, was not too accurate. As I was concluding on this third point, I was asking God, you will have to give me a proof that it is by prayer that we can pursue, because I could not relate it. But God began to show me a few things. He began to show me a few things, which was for me a conviction that it is indeed by prayers that we pursue. In Mark chapter 16 and verse 18, we read Jesus' instruction to the apostles. These signs are following them that believe in my name. They will cast out devils. They shall lay hands on the sick and they shall recover. Of course, God now began to explain to me that the concept of recovery also paints a picture of sickness, illness, diseases, and that it is by the prayer that accompanies the laying of hands that people can recover. Now, in the same vein, when something is stolen from somebody's life, that life is sick. Physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, many people are sick. And the only way to recover is by pursuing in prayer. Just as when hands are laid to the sick, they recover physically. When people pursue in prayers, they recover in other dimensions of their life. Do you get that point? It is in prayers that you recover. Another one God gave me here, 2 Chronicles 7 and verse 13 to 14. Verse 13 says, if I shut the heavens because of the sins of the land, because of the idolatry of the land, if I send pestilence on the earth, if I close down the heavens so that there is no rain and there is drought and famine. Verse 14, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face, I will hear from heaven, I will heal the land. When a land begins to experience pestilence and famine, when a life begins to experience pestilence and famine because of the stealing operations of the enemy, drought, emptiness, scarcity, it becomes sick. God says if a land can be cured by prayer, a life can recover by prayer. He says, if my people who will humble themselves and pray, I will heal the land. It is healing that is required there. For losses, it is a healing issue. Something is taken. When somebody gets sick, the doctors begin to examine, they discover something is missing, something was lost. They begin to recommend drugs to make up for what was lost. They begin to recommend certain diets to make up for what was lost. Anytime a loss happened, sicknesses happened. Financial sicknesses, emotional sicknesses, spiritual sicknesses. The solution is healing, recovery by prayers. And then in Luke chapter 22, let me get the exact verse correct now. Luke chapter 22 and verse 31. Jesus told Peter, Satan has asked for you that he may sift you as wheat. Or you can say, Satan has desired you. At this point, Peter was already experiencing a loss. He did not know. Some people don't get to know that they experience spiritual losses until they now backslide. You have reduced your prayer time from 1 hour to 30 minutes. And these days, you don't really enjoy church atmospheres like that. You just force yourself to go. You are losing something. You're on your way to somewhere. Peter was like this. Verse 32. Jesus told him, but I have prayed for you, that your faith should not fail. And when you have returned to me, Strengthen your prayer. How did Jesus recover Peter? Prayers. He said, I pray for you. I see that you are going, but I've done my own work. What's the parish? I know you come back. I know you come back. What's the parish? Everything lost is pursued and recovered in prayer. He says, I prayed for you. I prayed for you. I brought you back. Oh, no, you don't know. You don't know when I was laboring in prayers for you. I brought you back to your senses. Listen to me. It is by prayers we pursue. It is by prayers we overtake. It is by prayers we recover all. Stand to your feet. We'll pray some minutes this morning. Listen to me. Whatever you have lost, recovery is available. If you are sick in your body, recovery is available. If you are sick in your soul, recovery is available. If you are sick in your finances, recovery is available to those who pray. This morning, I'd like you to pray not as somebody who has not lost anything. That's why I told you the various things that people can lose in life. I said, maybe I have not lost anything. No. Maybe you came late for the service. Everybody has lost something. Everybody has lost something in one way or the other. But there's a certainty we are going to pray with today. The way David approached that race, it was not like maybe not. It was certain we are going to recover all. God had given him a word. If my people who are called by my name humble themselves and pray, I will hear from him and I will heal their life. There's a certainty of recovery. There's a certainty of recovery. I've told you the recovery may not happen in the exact way. You may not get the exact thing back, but God has 3 methods. He may compensate you in a way that loss will not even matter in your life. You not will remember you lost anything at the point in time. Begin to pray, begin to pray, begin to pray, begin to pray. I recover all that was lost to carelessness, all that was lost to satanic attacks, all that was lost to laziness. I recover all. In the name of Jesus, I pursue. This is a supernatural operation. Your legs are moving in the spirit right now. You are running towards your goodies. You travel faster in the spirit. I recover all. The Spirit of God is upon me, for He has anointed me to recover, to recover, to recover, to recover. Pursue in prayers, pursue in prayers, pursue in prayers, pursue in prayers. Compensation for everything lost, restoration to everything stolen, recovery. Make sure you are praying, make sure you are praying, make sure you are praying. There's a plan of God, a recovery plan of God. It's assessed in prayers. It's assessed in prayers. It's assessed in prayers. Come back, come back, come back, come back, come back. All that was lost, I chase after you now. I pursue you now. I get you back. I get you back. I get you back. I get you back. Recover by the speed of the Spirit. Recover. Recover confidence. Recover relationships. Recover favor. Recover opportunities. I recover in the name of the Lord. Come on, pray, come on, pray. Pursue, 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 pursue. Jesus told Peter, I have prayed for you. When you are returned, strengthen your brethren. Katakata yabadaba, mato brabastanta, mato brastatekete, labaradabadabada. I recover, I recover, I recover, I recover, I recover in the name of the Lord. This loss is not the last chapter. My hair will grow back. Just like Samson, my hair will grow back. My hair will grow back. I recover vitality. I recover fervency. It doesn't matter how you lost it. That's not the point. The point is God has a recovery plan. God has a recovery plan, and I'm taking advantage of it. I'm taking advantage. Secretary, hot pursuit, hot prayer, hot pursuit, hot prayer, hot pursuit, hot prayer, hot pursuit, hot prayer. I take it back. I take it back. I take it back. It's mine. It's mine. Dominion, authority, power. It's mine. Shakatakata bada 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 lekabada badu stakata mato brandada mato brandada mato brandada mato brandada mato brandadas. Recover. There's a captain of salvation ahead of you. It leads you into the place where your stuff is. It's not lost. It's not lost. It's not lost. He knows where it's kept. He knows where it's hidden. He knows where it is. And you are getting it now. You lay hold on it. I lay hold on it. All that was lost. I lay hold. I lay hold. I lay hold. Pursuing prayer. Pursuing prayer. Pursuing prayers. Pursuing prayers. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. I lay hold on my inheritance. Fight the good fight of faith. Lay hold on eternal life. Fight the good fight of faith. Lay hold on eternal life. You lost your job, is coming back. You lost your health, is coming back. Matakata bata bata bata. Lekoto shata. Nanino manerobolosta. I take it back. I take it back. I take it back. I take it back. It belongs to me. Jesus, give it to me. I own it. I own it. I own it. I recover. I recover. I recover. I recover. I recover. Shakatakatakatakata branda dabalabada. Rababababada brakata yakata yalakata ranamanas.